Hello, welcome back to our next video in the series for HubSpot lists. And today we're going to go through in a bit more detail about the individual lists page. As you may know, lists play a vital role in using HubSpot and using any kind of marketing or sales, CRM, and marketing emailing system. Lists are the way that we segment contacts and companies, so we know who we want to target and we can be more specific with our messaging to target that audience. So you can see here some example lists that I've set up in the demo account here, and you can look at my previous video that I did that goes through this page and how to use the different views here to organize your lists and the different areas of this page. But today we're going to go through specifically the actual page, and we're going to go through and look at what we can see here on this page and all the different features. So firstly, let's just take one step back. We go to contacts, we go to lists, and this is the list page. We've already gone through this in that other video, but we can see here we can create active and static lists. So I'm going to go in and look at the static list that I created previously here. And as you know, if you've watched the other videos, static lists are lists that have just you can use a filter to create them to begin with, but then once they've been created, you can't edit the filter. The only way you add people, the only way you can change the list is by adding people or removing people from the list. So for example, we can take these people off the list like this, remove from list, and we can add people to the list by going to the individual contact, either in the contact page like this, and we can click on those people we want to add, and we can go more, add to static list, and we can find the list we want to add them to like that. Or we can also go to the individual and we can click on their list section here on the right hand side. Here we go, manage list, and we can say add to list like this, add like so. Anyway, let's go back to the lists and we'll go back to that static list that we're looking at here. So this is just an example list that I've created for this, using this little sort of simple code to keep track. And we can see here that when I first generated the list, it was equal to anyone in Australia, but now this list, as I just showed you, we can add and remove people from that list. Now on this page, we can see all these key details here. So let's go through it step by step. At the top here, we've got the breadcrumbs, and we can see where this list is. It's been organized into a folder. And so we can see here, we went through this in the previous video. We have all the folders, we've got an Australia folder, and then we've added this list to the folder. It's up to you whether you want to add add lists into a folder and organize everything in folders, or whether you just have a good naming convention, you just keep everything in one big list folder, or maybe a combination of both can be good as well. That's the top here. We've got this breadcrumbs here. Then we have the name of the list, and we can click to edit this. It's very easy, and then just click away, and that saves the name of the list. It's good to have a lot of detail in this list, and then you can easily search, and maybe you'll forget some parts of the naming, but you have enough words here that you can then easily find some parts. So if typing small business or typing the name of the target or the area that we're looking at. And you can also have a date here as well. I've got the year and the month here just to keep track of when I last updated this list. We then have what kind of list it is here. So this is, as I said, a static list. We have the number of contacts that are in this list. It's usually pretty close to accurate, but sometimes it can take a little bit to update that. So if you make a change to a list, sometimes this number won't be accurate. But if you wait 5 minutes, then it will update. And we have the last time a contact has been added to this list here as well. So this is all very useful to review. Here we can search for the list, search within the list. So if we type in, let's say Sarah, and without even clicking enter, it'll automatically refresh and show all of our Sarahs. And you can type in just part of a name as well. We can see here SAR. You can clear that. We've got the details section here. So here we can see all the different details in one place for this list. This can be quite good to quickly have an overview of the list. So we've got the type, the count, the folder that it's in, last contact added, how it's changed in the last 7 days, when it was created and by who, when it was last updated and by who, and this time is the account time. We've got used in, and then which areas, and we'll go to that in a sec, this tab. So this is being used in 2 other assets. And then we have some IDs that you may need if you're setting up APIs for the list. So we won't go through that in this video. It's a bit more advanced, but we can see here it's used in 1 workflow and 1 other list. And we can click that, and we can see it's being used in this workflow. And if we click back, we click lists, and we can see it's being used in this active list, which we'll look at in a sec. That's the details, and then we have actions. And under actions, we can edit the columns that we see in this list view. So here we can see these columns, and when you change these columns, this will only affect your view of this list. So if you share this list, other people open this list, they won't see the columns that you save here. This will only be for your account. So keep that in mind as well. If you want to share a list with the specific columns, it's best to create a view under the contacts view. And I created another video about that as well, which you can watch. So this is just going to be for your view. And this operates very similar fashion to the views and changing the columns in the contacts view that we've gone through before. So just very briefly, you can see here, we can drag and move these columns around the column order. We can move to the top the column like that to save time. So it moves to the top like that. And then we can also, over here, we can also find the different properties we want to add to this view, to this list. The columns that we see for this list. And then we can drag that up, or we can move that to the top and move it around quickly like that. You can see here that you can click to apply this to all the contact lists that you have. So this will only affect your account. So if you wanted to update all of your lists so that you see these specific columns, then you click that. You can click here to clear all the columns from this view. Let's do that, see like that. We'll just add just city back. And let's add email back, for example. And we can also clear this. We can also select an add to list date. And we can add that as well. So we can see when people have been added to this specific list. Let's save this. So you can see here that this is the list date. For some reason, we can't order this date. So it's just the way it is. But we can see here the ones that were added on the 13th of June, the ones that were added earlier on the 24th of May to this list. So 45 contacts. That's edit columns. Then we have export list. So if you wanted to export this list, you can choose. It'll automatically throw in the columns you've selected and saved, but you can add in additional columns if you wanted to as well. So we wanted to add in job title here, like that. Can change the order as well, like normal. It'll automatically also pull in the company information if you want. So all of these details here, you can remove any of these if you wanted to, or reorder them as well. And we can click next. And then on this screen, we can choose when we export it, what should be the file format. So if we want CSV, Excel, XLX, what language we want the column headers to appear in the file, like so. And then you click export, it'll send an email to you when the file is ready. And you can click here just to download it. If it's a small file, it'll be really fast. But if it's a longer file, a bigger file, it might take some time. The notification will also appear up here for when the file is ready to be exported or saved, like that. And you'll get an email, as I said, as well. So that's the export, and we've got random sample. So if you wanted to generate a random sample of this list, let's say you wanted to you wanted to just do a double check of a list, just see, who's in this list, or you wanted to send to a certain subgroup of the list, but you want to just have a random group and not have, something that's like just certain cities or something, but literally random. You can create a static list with a random sample. Our list is already only 45 contacts, so it doesn't really make that much sense. But if you had a list of, say, 10,000 contacts, then you could create a random sample of, 100 contacts, let's say, like so, or a percentage of the list. And then you create lists, and then it'll automatically generate a new list which is a static list that you can send, for example, send an email to or look at more closely. We have split lists. And so here we can split this list into static lists, to a number of static lists, up to 10. And it won't affect the original list. And we can just create subsections of this, subgroupings of this list. Like so. So as I said, you can set a percentage, you can set it by size, and then we have an overall split so that you can segment your audience, or you can do sort of, let's say, more static or manual A/B testing or something else along those lines like that. That's the split list. You can move this list to a folder. It's already in the Australia folder, but you can move it to a new folder. You can clone this list to save time in creating another version of this, let's say. We can delete this list, but in this case we can't delete it because it's being used in a workflow in another list, so you need to remove it from those other assets before we could delete the list. And finally, we can create a report for this list or based on this list as well. We'll cover reports in another video as well, but that's there if you wanted to play with that. So they're all the different actions. And then here we can see the filters section. So for a static filter, there's nothing we can do here because this list has already been created and we can't edit the filters with a static list. We can only add and remove people. So we can't change that. Here we can use this button to select all the contacts here. We can see now there are 48 contacts. So this is a good example here that the 45 up here hasn't updated. This is always a little bit slow to update. So 48 contacts is more accurate here. And then we can change the settings for these 48. Let's say if we wanted to, we can change the owner of these contacts. So that's the sale. That could be the salesperson, or it could be whoever's responsible for that contact. We can edit the details, any of the details. We can bulk edit. Let's say we want to change all of them to have a new city, like this. And we could update all to have the city Sydney. We wouldn't necessarily want to do that, but let's say we wanted to just update a few of them for some reason. We could do the same thing like this. Any property in HubSpot we can update. Any editable property we can update here. We want to remove them from this list. Very quick and easy. We can just click remove. We can also enroll them in a sequence. Where I haven't set this up with the demo account, but if you were using the sequence functionality of HubSpot, you can click that here. We can also create tasks. Let's say for these let's say we just do these 2 contacts. We want to create a task to follow up with them. Let's say to do or a call. We can edit this here if we want to, and we can add a priority, assign, and all these areas here, which is creating a task functionality. So we'll go through this in another video in more detail, but here you can see it's pretty self-explanatory. You can change the reminder, the due date, sorry. Here we can set up a reminder when it should be, they should get a notification to remind them to do this task, just like that. So that's nice and convenient. We can add these contacts to a different static list with this option here. We can enroll them manually in a workflow. If we set up a workflow we want to put them into, like this, let's say, and we can delete the contacts. These contacts will be deleted from HubSpot, so they can be restored within 90 days. You've got to type the number to confirm, but that is not removing them from this list. It's literally deleting them from the HubSpot account. So you've got to be careful about that one. Most of the time you probably just want to remove them from a list like that. And then down the bottom here, if we have more than one page, or if we have a smaller grouping, we can select the number of contacts we want to see per page, and we can go to the different pages. So this can be useful if you want to get all the contacts on one page, or let's say you have a big list and you want to confirm how many contacts there are. You can do that. Like so, we can see there's less than 50 contacts here. We know there's 48 contacts here, like so. And you can see this is updated here. Now it says 48 contacts. And then we have the performance tab. This is really useful. You can see here that we have the list size over time. We can see if the list size has changed. So we can see here that it was 50, and then we removed some contacts, we added some contacts, we ended up with 48 contacts on this date. keep in mind you can edit the date range here. So this list was only created here, so we don't see much other detail, but let's say you wanted to look at all the data over time for this list. You can see here that there's not much data for this particular list. We can see the last 30 days. We can see the last 3 months, whatever you want, last week. And you can see the changes here. Let's say the last 30 days. It's good. And we can also change how we're looking at this. So it can also be over time by version. And so we can see here the list version hasn't changed. I'll show this functionality in the active list. That'll make more sense there. We can see contacts breakdown and engagement, so where they've come from. We can edit the source. We can change the country. We haven't updated that one. We can see the life cycle. And we can also save this as a report as well. So you can see here that contacts have come from direct traffic, from organic search, paid search, and offline sources. And here we can also see if the contacts have been active on our website. So this is just a demo account. Again, you can't really see this detail for these contacts, but you would normally have a number that have visited your site, converted on a form, opened an email, clicked in an email, and perhaps submitted an NPS survey as well. So there's some really useful information under the performance tab here. And if we jump back and we look at, let's go back and look at an active list. For example, this one here. The main difference is that we can edit these filters. So this is a list that these contacts can't be changed manually because that's only possible in a static list. We can only edit them and assign them like we could for all. So all the other functionality is here, but we don't have the ability to remove them from this list like this. Let's say we want to remove these two from this list. It's not an option. We click here, but it'll delete them from the HubSpot account. So you shouldn't do that. Instead, these contacts are in this list because of the filters on the left here. And these filters are very powerful, very useful in HubSpot because they correspond to all kinds of activity and functionality and data that exists in HubSpot. We can add filters based on the contact properties, based on the company properties, based on deals, invoice, feedback, everything. All the different data that HubSpot's collecting, we can add and remove contacts to these lists based on changes to this data. Activity properties, and there's definitely a whole other video one video to go through in more detail about the filter setup for this. But the most important one that you'll probably use is contact properties, maybe company properties, and potentially also marketing emails. If they did certain things, click the link in a certain email, and also whether they're a member of another list. So if we take a step back here and we look at what's already set up, we've got group 1, and this is persona is either the small business owner Sally persona or the marketing manager Mike persona, and that they're based in Australia here. We can add and remove other details here. We have these two values. Or, just to demonstrate, I've also set up group 2, which is whether they're a member of that static list that we were just working on, like this. So we could control who's in this list based on editing the static list, because anyone that is in the static list or anyone that fits these filters here would be added to this active list that we're looking at. So that's also another way to add and remove people from an active list if you needed to. You can have a list within a list, a static list. So you have this active filter and you also have this static list filter down here if you wanted to have that functionality or flexibility for creating this list. So if we go to performance here, or let's go back a step, discard these changes, performance here, and we can see this list has changed a bit over time because I just updated this today. And we can also see this over time by version option. So you can see here the first version of this list is the orange one, which had 13 contacts. And then we have the second version, 28 contacts, and the third version, 57. And we can see all the other detail that we already went through. And so that's how the active lists work. And so in summary, we've gone through the static lists and active lists, how they look, how to change the all the different actions, edit columns, all this functionality here. Oh, there's one other change, one other option here as well. I just noticed that you can also convert an active list to a static list as well. You can't do it the other way around, but you can take an active list and save it as a static list, but you'd no longer be able to make changes to the filters. You would instead have to add and remove people manually. So that's a summary of all the functionality and features of the individual list pages and everything we can do. Please let me know your thoughts and questions, and I'd be happy to go into cover anything else or answer any questions in the comments, and hopefully make some other videos that will be useful for you as well. So please feel free to share any other areas you'd want to learn, any feedback, and subscribe to this channel, and we'll have more videos that will be helpful for HubSpot and related areas in the future. So thanks very much for listening and for watching, and look forward to seeing you in the next video. Cheers.